So, summary of the second day of the DNC, including Barack Obama, Michelle Obama's speeches, Bernie Sanders. In fact, we asked our audience who they thought was the best speech of the night. I have the exciting conclusion of that at the end of the summary. In fact, right now, two of the speeches in one of the polls is tied.
Wow.
Oh, it's a dead heat. Keep voting. It's in the chat.
Now, best speech versus most important speech, different too in these things. I mean, I know that's where you're polling best speech, but you really want to summarize this speech, so I'm going to let you.
Yeah, I'm going to do it,
Right.
and then we'll talk through that distinction. So, to me, for both Michelle and Barack Obama, there was a contrast, a purposeful contrast to what Trump and Vance said, and so they painted the Republicans do as, "Hey, we're the real Americans. Okay, make America great again, like it was." And their ticket feels so 1950s. You know, you got boss man Donald Trump with his attractive younger wife. You got the guy from the middle of the country, and he was a veteran. And nothing like the boss man's not pleasant, but nothing wrong with the typecast of JD Vance coming from the middle of the country. But then he became a venture capitalist. So like wealth, privilege, uniformity, etc.
Yale and Penn.
Yeah, and then on the Democratic side, instead of making it about their frame, the Republican Trump frame of black versus white, America as you knew it and loved it versus the new America, you're a little afraid of change, etc. No, they flipped it and they said, no, it's actually the middle class versus the really wealthy. And so Trump represents the really wealthy, and Barack Obama talked about this. We fought for you guys. When I was there, we did Obamacare, and now all of a sudden they don't call it Obamacare anymore because it's popular. They did Medicare drug price negotiations. So when we're in office, you get healthcare, you get this, you get that. When they're in office, they get corporate tax cuts for Donald Trump and his friends. And so it wasn't just to get a zinger on it. It was to frame him as the rich guy who's lived a life of privilege. And so they talked about how he had everything handed to him. Michelle Obama talked about how he had everything handed to him. Whereas when we see a mountain, we don't have an escalator going up, she said.
Right.
We've got to actually climb that mountain ourselves. And one of the most interesting parts, Michael, was when Barack Obama was talking about both Michelle Obama's mom, who just passed away, and his own grandmother who helped to raise him. And by the way, that was a white person, obviously he's half black, half white, and she's from a little town in Kansas.
Right.
And it was in contrast to I thought to JD Vance's mama, right? That was his grandmother that helped raise him. And if you remember, JD Vance told a story about how his grandmother had 19 guns around the house.
Yeah.
And and he painted her as someone loving and lived a hard scrabble life, and we appreciate the hard scrabble life. That gives you a sense of poor middle class, real Americans, etc. But then he took it in a weird direction.
It took a turn. I remember we were both listening and we were like, whoa, this went.
Yeah, and then he painted her as this almost unlikable character when the country was ready to love her for how she took care of JD Vance, right? And later I found out, by the way, that she's an interesting character. She literally lit his grandfather on fire. So it took a dark turn, and I'm going to come back to that too because of what he said about the cemetery and stuff and how it connects to Obama's speech. But when Obama was painting the picture of his grandmother and Michelle Obama's mom, he was talking about women who grew up with no advantages, who learned the hard way that you got to pull yourself up and you got to fight for a better life and believe in America. And then isn't it amazing where your kids can wind up if you do all the right things?
Completely.
And it was the inspirational story that JD Vance should have given about his grandmother, right?
Right.
But then the most important part to me was JD Vance talked about how America is not an idea. That was a part of the speech, if you remember, I despised because I think America is an idea, right? And he said, no, it's about the soil. And that's a very conservative way of thinking about it. No, it's the fatherland, and the fatherland is about the soil you were born on, and whoever was born in that area is who that country and that nation is. Whereas Barack Obama, Michelle Obama painted it in America that is, as Barack said, a creed and not based on blood.
Yeah.
And remember, all of the old world is based on blood. You got royal blood, then you go up top. You don't have royal blood, you're screwed, right? And blood was relevant in the United Kingdom and the British Empire. The blood was relevant in India with the caste system, anywhere you want, Turkey, China, etc. And it mattered if you were royalty, if you were born into the right place or not. But in America, it's a creed, it's an idea that we could all make it. When you flip that frame, and then it looks like the Republicans are preaching at you from the mountaintop, and I'm rich and I'm powerful, and this is my place and not your place. And these guys are saying, no, it's all of our place. And Michelle Obama said, the story of Kamala Harris's mom is not just the story of her mom, it's the story of your mom, right? And our story isn't just our story, it's your story. That's perfect. So I thought they did a fantastic job. I've got more, but I want to let you.
Yeah, no, I don't think that I could add anything else to that other than what, these speeches, we get caught up in the convention, right? That this is happening in this hall and they're speaking to all these delegates, but they're not. They're getting the applause from these delegates, and the reaction and the energy and all of that is coming from the delegates and the people in the hall and all the press and everybody. But this is going out to America. And I think it's going out to a very slim portion of America. And this addressing the middle class in the way that Obama did, the president did, is talking about the independent middle class voters, union voters, people who had typically for a long time they were bootstrappers, and they found an accessibility ramp with Donald Trump because he pretended to speak for them. And what Obama did here was say, no, they weren't speaking for you. They are speaking for themselves. We want you to come back here because this is who we're speaking to. And I think that thin swath of Americans and voting Americans is what's going to decide this race in about 9 states in 11 weeks.
Yeah, and so looking at Obama, I'd almost forgotten what Obama sounded like, because after his presidency, he
sounds like Josh Shapiro. The guy sounded just like Josh Shapiro.
That's really funny. You should tweet that.
Okay.
But you almost forget it because it's eight years later, right? And you only see a couple of speeches, and Obama's not very active as, like, for example, Jimmy Carter is in his post-presidency. And so you forget how overwhelmingly competent he is. Yeah. And like, we had this race frozen in time, Trump and Biden, and it felt like these gears grinding so slowly in rusty gears. And, one guy could barely talk, the other guy's a madman saying crazy stuff. And there was this feeling that Michelle Obama talked about where hope was diminishing, right? And we were starting to worry that it was going to run out, right? And here comes the Obamas, and then this is a point about optics, but God, they look so all American, okay? And so you see Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, it kind of reminds you of what we had,
Well, it does, but right, it does. But I think that it normalizes what we had in a way, and it's not, I don't think there's nostalgia here. I think it's like, this is what people look like and behave like. Tim Walz in his flannel shirt and Kamala Harris, who went to an HBCU, that's what America is, right? And so it didn't, to me anyway, have the effect of, oh man, I miss the Obamas. I wish it just sort of reminded me that there is something normal that can also be presidential.
Totally. So I said before that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz look like they're out of a movie. Like that if you're going to make a movie about president, like American president and vice president, you'd almost typecast these guys,
course.
Right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like Barack Obama, Michelle Obama looked like the president and first lady from a different movie.
So yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. And it's one we also saw.
A movie we saw and loved.
Right. It was a popular movie. I don't, before we go, and we're going to go onto other things, the Obamas overshadow everything when they give speeches like this on any night. I thought tactically, and I thought for the campaign, I thought Doug Emhoff did a really good job tonight of talking about his wife. And I think well, I got to know a little bit more about Kamala Harris, and I think a lot of people probably did, from the way he spoke about her. And I thought that was, so in terms of important speeches, yeah, this is rah, rah, get out and vote. Michelle Obama saying, don't worry if we don't contact you. This is me telling you what you have to do. But I thought Doug Emhoff did the job he had to do tonight really well.
Yeah, so let me say 2 quick notes on Emhoff and Bernie, and then I'll come back and finish up on the Obamas and then give you the poll results. Because those are the 4 people that we polled that had excellent speeches.
I confess I didn't hear Senator Sanders tonight.
Yeah. So I had actually heard his speech earlier at Progressive Democrats of America, and John and Anna covered it, but they said it was the same one in essence. So on Emhoff, I mean, it's remarkable how similar his story is to mine. Grew up in New Jersey, middle class, became a lawyer. And then our members reminded me, not like I was saying, before I married Wendy, my 2 previous girlfriends were Black and Indian as Kamala Harris is, except it's actually even more exact because my previous girlfriend was Jamaican, and yeah, right? And he had the couch with the plastic covers on it. He rode his bicycles throughout the suburbs and that we grew up in and loved. And whenever you were to somebody else's house, if you were there at dinner time, you would have dinner there, right? And
right.
House, you'd have dinner there. And it reminded you of an America that some of us just absolutely love, right? And he's so likable. Jesus, he's so likable, right?
Right.
And so,
I should tell you, the rest of America made fun of the people that had plastic covering on their cushions.
I know that.
I don't want you to get too comfortable about that. So yeah, it was America you may have loved, but we were all laughing at the people with the plastic. That's fine. Okay, that's true. That is true.
Yeah, and so it's a super likable speech. Bernie, we love for a different reason. He went back to basics. He went back to the Bernie that was more of a fighter and laying out the progressive agenda and saying, hey, look, don't forget, we need universal health care. We need all these things that are so important for the average person just to be able to get by, and emphasize the real problem is money in politics, right? Thank you, Bernie, for going back to that. And that's just so important.
Had he left that? I mean, had he not talked about money in politics?
So what happened is, this is my theory of what happened. And I don't think that it's much of a theory. I think it's pretty obvious that he had become such a close ally of President Biden, that he restrained himself from giving the populist speeches and the more, barn burner speeches, and not as much about money in politics because the establishment and Biden are raising billions of dollars, et cetera, right? And it makes it more uncomfortable. And so it felt like we got the old Bernie back, we got the old Barack Obama, the old Michelle Obama. It felt like 2012 as opposed to 2016 and beyond. So that was a huge relief. So tonight was a great night. Yesterday was great too. And finally, back to the Obamas. Michael made this point as we're doing the play-by-play coverage, which, by the way, of course, check us out. Every night, normally we're live at 6 o'clock Eastern, go to 6 to 8 o'clock. But for the conventions, we're on from 6 o'clock all the way through the end of the speeches, and then a little extra for our members. And you mentioned earlier in that coverage, Michael, they're reclaiming America, right?
Yeah.
When Steve Kerr went up last night and gave a great speech, he just won the gold medal as a coach of the American basketball team. And of course, loved here in Chicago because he played as part of the championship teams of the Chicago Bulls, which he referenced. And then he's had such a great patriotic speech that they started chanting USA, USA, and that happened throughout the night.
Throughout the night, it happened when Kamala Harris went on stage earlier in the night. Totally, yeah.
And Barack Obama framed that both freedom, taking back the word freedom, and taking back the idea of America, and he framed it in a way that included all of us rather than excluding us the way that Trump does.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I don't know when it happened. When you see a flag on a car or in a yard, what do you think right away?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of things you think Republican.
Exactly. I mean, or even worse, or MAGA, right? I mean, you think, and so
or old school, but overall.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you give an allowance
from Louisiana.
There are definitely people. So I'm not. You cannot put
you're
that
overall
blanket
right.
over everything.
Yeah.
It has changed, though, right? That sensation of seeing the flag has changed. And I think the Democrats, and you and I have actually talked about this as far back as when we were in another studio in the Turks era, is that the Democrats need to take back the flag.
Yep.
And that's what I feel this convention is going to be remembered for among the Democrats that are here, and maybe the Democratic Party writ large. And I think that's really an important thing for them to do.
Yeah, and finally, so Barack Obama has these great like analogies that just connect with you and make you feel like you know him and you like him. So he compared Trump to the guy who runs the leaf blower next to your window, hour after hour after hour. You just can't get rid of the son of a gun, right? And so, to use an old timey phrase. And it's so true. That's exactly right. That's exactly how we feel. And we hate that leaf blower guy.
Yeah,
right?
we hate it. And if you grew up in New York City, like some of us did, you hate that 1 a.m. sanitation truck. And he's saying it's as if it's happening all day long.
Yeah, right. And then he hit the cultural zeitgeist by saying, some of us feel alone these days. And we're constantly trolling each other and yelling at each other.
And caring about what someone we don't even know thinks about something we've done. And that's social media in a nutshell. And
as he was saying it about how, look, it's okay if people make choices that are different than ours.
Right.
Right? You don't all have to make the same choice. Whereas the Republicans make it feel like, no, you have to do this.
Yeah.
And this is the right way. And if we don't like abortion, you shouldn't be allowed to have abortion. Right.
The party that opposed mandates is always mandated.
100%. And then I said to Michael as we're doing the play-by-play, I hope he says we should also show grace to people who don't think like us, that are Republicans or on the other side. And then he said exactly that. Yeah. And the reason why that's so important is because then it doesn't feel like us versus them. Then it feels like you're even inviting MAGA or Republicans into your tent and going, guys, remember, we're all supposed to be brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And we're all supposed to be Americans together. And that is both much better politics and much better ideas, and this captures them true American spirit.
And it isn't just MAGA, because MAGA might be hard for anybody to reach, but Republicans who supported this president, this former president, I think are going to look at this convention, if they are looking at it at all, and hear some of these messages. And that's not pie in the sky, because I don't think a lot of them are watching, and I don't think it's going to change a lot of minds. But it's certainly going to make people think a little bit who do spend the time to watch this thing. So, I have this theory, Cenk, that MAGA Republicans, the MAGA wing, are like Tiger Woods golf fans. I think I've probably shared that with you before. I don't watch golf. I don't think you really watch golf. If Tiger's golfing, I'm going to watch, right? I mean, there's something about that. And I think that when Trump is off the stage, and I think this informed the pick of J.D. Vance, because they thought, well, maybe here's someone who can take that baton. I think when Trump is off the stage, a lot of those people are going to fall by the wayside, and other Republicans are going to need somewhere to go and something to look at. And I think this kind of rhetoric is important for that.
Yes. Okay. So guys, I'm going to give you the poll results. Then we're going to go to members only real quick. And then I'm going to tell you a funny story about Obama and members only. But before I give you the exciting conclusion of the poll results, and it's so close, let me do the shout outs I promised earlier to all the wonderful people who signed up on YouTube. And by hitting the join button below, we need you guys and we appreciate you. Juki Chukwamane, Abbey Road 39, Shindig Eats, Anthony Rufo, Little Angry Irishman, which is hilarious. Leah 007 joined and then upgraded it to premium. We didn't raise prices during inflation, so thank you for upgrading. That makes a big difference. You could also do that through the join button. Tara Dunn, Ben DH, Sergol 93, Alex Barrientos, James Wickton, Brandon Dotson, and to all the wonderful people who donated through TYT/DNC. I'll make sure to shout you out during the bonus episode as well. And if we can get to 25K tonight, that would be amazing. We're trying to get to 47 overall to pay for this. And you guys are so wonderful and supportive. And I want to read some of your comments in the bonus episode as well. But so finally, the poll results. Who gave the best speech on day 2 at the DNC? YouTube community was so evenly split. They had Michelle and Barack Obama at 34% apiece for a long time. but literally 1,000 more votes came in. Okay, I feel like we're doing election night. Cuyahoga County came in finally. Bernie Sanders finished at 25%, third place. Poor Doug Emhoff, loved his speech, but he came in.
Well, and that's tough. It's tough company. He's not a politician either, but I really believe he did something important to them.
Yeah, and there's more votes for him on Twitch. We did that as well. So Barack Obama 35%, Michelle Obama 37%.
Look at that.
Wins it. And in the chat, and whenever we do the polls, it's also live in the chat. So about a couple of thousand votes there as well. Bernie at 23, Emhoff at 4, Barack Obama at 29, and Michelle Obama at 44. Everyone agrees Michelle Obama won the night.
Yeah, no question.
All right, all of you stay right here. We got a little bit more for the members. So hit that join button below, or you can join also through tyt.com/T. We'll see you there in a minute.
Thanks for watching the video, guys. We also love it if you hit the join button below, because that makes you a member, and members allow us to be independent, honest. We can be as progressive as we want, no corporate media influence, and that's all because of you guys. We love doing the show with our members. Hit the join button, become one of the Young Turks.